Chapter 35. 2 days later. Casey stepped from the bath in Sear's room, still amazed by how clean she felt after the tub of warming stuff, some substance that was not quite water, but not quite gel either. She donned a massive robe made of a shimmering fabric that felt thick and soft against her body, and absolutely heavenly. As she ran a brush through her hair, she felt happier than she had in years. The council had finished handing out the last of their rulings just hours before. She didn't know all the specifics, but she knew that the spiritus males had been given a deadline to woe their mates. If they failed to do so, another male would be given a chance to win their hearts. And if by a predetermined date no male managed to win their hearts, they would be allowed to return to Earth, which many of the women will be thankful for. The information wasn't common knowledge yet, but from what she understood, in a year's time, the Council would return to Earth with the missing humans and attempt a treaty of some kind. They wanted to be in control of when the women returned and what was said when they were brought back, which was annoying but understandable. And as for the women who selected a mate, they were never allowed to return. Casey would miss Earth and her sister, but her heart was with Sear now and forever. Besides, Darlene would no longer have to worry about her sick sister. She could use the money Casey had left for her to fix her leg, to stop being in pain, and maybe, finally, meet someone who could make her happy, too. Her sister had been her best friend their entire lives. The loss of her sent a longing aching in her chest, but she knew that Darlene would be okay without her. No one is tougher than her. Setting down her brush, she looked at herself in the mirror. She'd lost too much weight again. There were circles under her eyes and a hollowness to her skin after spending too many days waiting for Sear to be healed enough to be allowed to wake up. But the strange thing was, she'd never felt more beautiful. Sear makes me feel beautiful. She turned to stare at his sleeping form in the bed. Although his time in the healing bed was finished, he still needed as many hours of sleep as he could get until he fully recovered. I'm his mate now. I want to show him what that means. Tiptoeing to the edge of the bed, she gazed at his face. His markings were still duller than they should have been, but they wrapped his flesh in a familiar scattering of shapes, like intricate curving tattoos. He looked younger as he slept, even beneath the slight beard he hadn't yet shaved off. She caught the edge of his blanket and slowly tugged it down. His body was covered in scars, some pale and pink, others still red and angry-looking. He'd healed so much, and yet he still had so much more healing to do. I'll have to be gentle. And then he slowed, wrapping his arms around her shoulders and pulling her close. Sparks continued to fire inside her, but she pressed into him, inhaling his exotic, familiar smell, still in disbelief that she didn't just have tonight with him, but forever. As her eyelids grew heavy, he stroked the hair from her back.
I love you, my mate.
She turned and pressed a soft kiss to the side of his neck. I love you, my mate. His arm tightened around her. Sleep tugged at her thoughts, and then his damned comp began to beep. She sighed, climbing off him, tying the robe at her waist. He pulled the blanket around himself and strode to the computer, sitting in the chair. She perched herself on his knee. What do you think this is? He rubbed his face.
Only one way to find out.
Clicking a button, an image appeared on the hollow screen. It was Leader in a ship. His markings were gray and slow, his eyes wild.
Leader?
Listen,
He rushed out.
I only have a minute before I jump through the portal. The council delivered my punishment today. They stripped me of my title, my possessions, and exiled me.
I'm so...
And my mate.
He growled.
I could accept the others. I could not accept that. So, I stole her.
Sear shook his head.
They'll come after you. They'll find you.
You don't understand. None of it matters. Nothing matters without her. She might not love me yet, but I know she can. She's just so damn stubborn.
A familiar voice spoke from behind him.
Who you calling stubborn?
Casey stiffened as a chill went down her spine, and then a familiar face came into view. Darlene!
Casey.
Her older sister's dark eyes widened as she leaned over the chair behind Leader to peer back at Casey. Tears choked her throat as she shook her head. No, this wasn't supposed to happen. You're supposed to be safe on Earth. I did everything to protect you, to give you a good life. Darlene reached out as if to touch her.
Don't you get it? I'm the older sister. I could never let you do this alone. I've been working so damned hard to find you, to make sure you're safe.
Her eyebrows lifted and she looked Seer up and down.
But it appears that you are.
Casey swallowed. I am. I swear to you I am. The virus is better. I got married. I'm in love. I'm happy. But you,
Have been kidnapped by a psycho.
she said, narrowing her eyes at Leader.
Not to worry. He's about to learn who's really in charge here.
But the way her sister stared at the man beside her, there was more than anger in her gaze. There was interest, passion. Casey had never seen that look in her sister's eyes before. I'll come get you, if you want to be rescued. Darlene hesitated. So it's like that, is it?
We're going through the portal.
Leader broke in.
Sit down in that chair before I...
Darlene winked at her, then called out,
I love you, always and forever.
Always and forever, she shouted back. And then the screen faded to black. She turned to Seer with panic in her eyes. What if she really doesn't want him? We should find her. Help her. Seer tilted his head.
Are you sure she wants to be rescued?
Casey opened her mouth, but no words came out. Seer sat back in his chair.
What do you think? Will she enjoy a man like Leader? A stubborn, daring, adventurous know-it-all? Will she like being on the run, seeing new worlds, and constantly experiencing new things?
The answer was easy. Yes. Seer wrapped his arms around her waist.
Then let them have their fun. I, for one, would like to see what else my little mate can teach me.
Despite the lingering confusion concerning her sister, Casey smiled. I can worry about that later. I have all the time in the world now with my mate. Come on then, back to bed.